Welcome back to the Cantina. We are covering episode 4 of The Acolyte, entitled Day, on this week's episode. We are sad. We are missing Adam this week. We're one host down, but Ben and I are going to venture forth and into the jungles of the unknown. And who knows what we'll find.
Yeah. Oh, man, so excited for this one. Of course, we got the Kelnaka episode when Adam was gone, but it wasn't much of a Kelnaka episode, as it turns out. And this is a live reaction. We both just watched this thing. I don't even take notes anymore because I'm just like, I have to watch everything. Like, I'm afraid, like, if I look down to like type in like a word or something, then I'll miss the next.
You're missing
dialogue.
a landing sequence or something.
Yeah.
And you want to take in the dazzling VFX, which we should really applaud in this show. I think there's on location sets, gorgeous like High Republic era ship designs, just incredible sort of like Leslie Headland takes the time to really like explore. Like, we're traveling around the galaxy. We're landing in new places. It's hard to take notes during the episodes because you just want to take in like the sumptuous visuals, and it's tough.
It's kind of this was again a perfect Star Wars. You had like you're there, you're talking to locals, you're using different equipment. There's like for me this is a perfect Star Wars. There's droids, there's creatures you don't quite understand, there's monsters. There's new terrain. It's like it was just great. You get the landing sequence. We had a hyperspace ring, an early mod of a hyperspace ring, which I didn't know was part of the thing. Like that, it was chef's kiss. I just love it.
Yeah, but So I do want to talk about Kelnaka because the episode starts with this like extended sort of Kelnaka like cooking sequence and just doing his homely duties, and then you see these again. We talked about a Kodak last week, and we see this circular design. We see a lot of like yin yang esque sort of imagery, and then I think we see a circular sort of symbol or emblem that I think corresponds with, I want to say, the circular emblem on May's forehead.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely the same style. That Witch Coven's tribe. Had definitely all their tattoos ended up looking like that. So he was clearly studying this culture, what he might have missed, like something that like what did he destroy, if that's what happened, and that's pretty much all we get at Kelnaka. But I mean, fascinating stuff there. I kind of missed the yin yang part. You're right. That almost like resembled the sort of Last Jedi the
Prime Jedi sort of image, that we see on Octo on the floor there. But it looks like Kelnaka is specifically researching like sort of the duality of light and dark, and the potential there, and possible dyads, esque. Twins or forced conceived beings, or something that maybe has to do with what we've heard so far about May and Osha. So that's pretty cool that he's actually researching that sort of line of thought. Very cool stuff. And then we kind of cut away from him, and we go straight to what, May and Chimere? Is that
no? We go to the
we go Osha,
Jedi training
Jedi temple.
Coruscant.
Osha leaving.
Before we get there, though, I just want to back up for a quick second. If this episode's called Day,
yes.
Episode 5 is almost certainly called Night, right?
I mean, I would imagine we've had, that play on the titles where just complete opposites, contrasting sort of titles before, so I'm sure it's going to be a continuation of that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm still holding on. We made 2 predictions last week for
let's
sure.
Get to the end of sort of like just covering.
Let's cover the ep first.
We dropped some theories at the end of the pod last week, and I just want to think. I now think maybe a combination of the 2 theories might be sort of what's going on here. But
I love this. We'll cover the ep first. And then Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite. We're just going to go off. And talk
we will.
About whatever.
So stick around because we're going to get to some fun, juicy.
All the theories. because there's it's so heavy, so heavy. I love it. I love it so much.
It's
All right,
so
so this
good. It's like I thought this episode was paced a little fast, and I was
it was short.
it was
Yeah.
short. It was a huge cliffhanger episode. We'll obviously get there. But I really like that it's all of the Star Wars elements that you know and love. Just it just feels like it's being delivered in a new and interesting way. And even the small council meeting, which I can't wait to talk about, it just comes out of nowhere, and it's like it's almost like as heavy-handed with the Jedi as George ever was, or
Yeah.
like, and it just feels like they're all there, and it's so interesting. Like I really want to get to that stuff and talk about it.
Well, we're almost there. We're almost
Okay,
there. So
we're almost there.
we start on Coruscant, and we get some of my new favorite sound design, which is wait, actually, what are those swords called? They're called Boken, right? The Jedi
Yep.
younglings are training with Boken, but they're a little bit older, and their lightsaber forms are strong. And we see a new Jedi teaching them,
Yep.
and he is a blade master, and he's keeping it tight. I loved it. Like, this is a throwback. You always see these scenes in like old kung fu movies. You go to like the temple, and like all the people are on the grounds just like doing drills, and and so this is definitely a call to those. But like the sound design on all of that, because it's like force assisted wooden sword forms. Oh, just yes, let's
it
go.
was very cool just to see some Jedi process stuff. Like I want to see all the different classes that the Padawans are in and what's going on and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just so glad the show takes time to be like, here's sword training, here's saber training, and here's what that looks like. And then Jecki immediately sees Osha. I guess Osha standing in the threshold there, and this is a tough scene, honestly, where she's like leaving and she's like, I'm not a Jedi anymore. Like I want to get into this because I feel like there's a lot we need to discuss here, especially with the morality of the Jedi coming up, that I really it's just so interesting, like that. But again, we have evidence that the Jedi will do certain things like this, where just use people as bait.
Which is kind of precedented. I mean, throughout the Clone Wars, they do that too.
Yeah,
but I do keep waiting for the like orange lightsaber to fall, like the sort of the other shoe to fall.
In the room sleeping episode Attack of the Clones, like
yes.
Obi-Wan and Anakin are basically like, and
Perfect
Anakin.
example.
This is Anakin's idea to basically bait the bounty hunters, the assassins out. And sort of
with
put
his loved one.
Room,
Yeah, that's like classic Jedi.
But then in this, I'm saying it's the Vernestra soul being like, we got to use Osha basically to track the sister, to manipulate the sister, use the sister, or turn her, stop her from being violent. Essentially, kind of use her love of her sisterly love as a tool.
Yeah. Was there anything more that happened between Jecki and Osha? So like before we get into the council, the room of the small council. What there was just that sort of quiet moment between Osha and Jecki. I thought there was a line there that was.
I think the unsaid there is that Osha's like totally a Jedi, but she's like, I'm not a Jedi. But like later on, you get these fun echoes to that moment where she's like, I sensed it. Like she's still very much sensing things all around her and understanding, what needs to happen.
She's feeling the Force awaken, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
inside her. Yeah, when I think she started to try to reach out, and she's like. And there was, I mean, if we are jumping ahead to like just after that council scene, well, it comes later. But like she says, like, oh, did you want to invite me back to the Order? Like a little too eager, and he's like, no. And but I thought that was very telling. That maybe that's where she is. Maybe she's regained that love and feeling for the Jedi, and is like, maybe I can do this again. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm excited to see what happens there. But I think after this scene, we get May and Kymir landing on Kofar.
Was there anything more in that scene you wanted to talk about, the small council? I mean,
we're at the small council? Are we there? Oh, yeah, we're at the small council.
We're there at the small council after the
I thought the small council was so cool, like the meeting in that little briefing room and all the Jedi being there. And like Kiadi-Mundi's, it's not Kiadi-Mundi? It's
not confirmed. And the way they do the credits, as long as they don't say which actors play which characters, which grinds my gears a little bit. But they do so many other cool things. Like
I feel like
the
Syrians
critic.
have multiple brains and multiple hearts or whatever, and I
Yeah.
feel like maybe they have extended life. I feel like that's Kiadi-Mundi. Like it just seemed like Kiadi-Mundi, and it
A
also
young Kiadi-Mundi. That's what I was hoping for. I'm like, oh, this is cool because he's. I mean, but is that racist? I don't know. I don't want to
no,
be.
yeah. I don't want to say it is. It just seemed like to me. I was just
It
like,
could
oh,
be.
even the hair. I feel like was the same and everything like that, and it
Yeah.
just seemed like and I had read somewhere that they had multiple organs of some kind, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe that grants extended life as well.
Right. Syrian. That is the name of the
Yes.
species. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
who knows who it was? There definitely a Kiadi-Mundi, esque character in there.
Yeah.
Vernestra leading the council, sort of being the funny that Yoda is nowhere in sight.
Well, so did you catch the part where they were like, "We should bring this to the High Council," and Vernestra's like, "Absolutely not." So, like,
Yeah,
the
there's
High Council, that's where Yoda is. And honestly, I think they're not telling the High Council because they just don't want to show Yoda. But, yeah. But yes, that's where Yoda is. I assume on the High Council still.
right,
And
and yeah, in this
yeah,
matter, it's
Oppo
interesting
Ramses
because
Yariel
they're
Poof.
taking so much concern with this issue of the twins and May, and yeah, it just begs the question of why is this being kept from the High Council essentially.
Right. Well, I think because it was a black eye on the order. I mean, Vernestra's doing political damage control on this.
But good leaders want to see the red, like
You're right. Yeah, I would. Yeah, it's like why wouldn't you bring it to the High
yeah,
Council? It's like we need to face this and like own up to our live our
exactly.
truth.
Yeah.
That's what Yoda would have put this
But then it
right.
felt like there were so many Jedi that were just in on this sort of being a side quest for the Order, and
Yeah.
like that room is pretty packed. And
Yeah.
they send like 7 Jedi deep to Kofar
Yeah.
to like deal with the issue.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was
Like
awesome.
there
I
was
mean,
Jedi 1, Jedi 2, Jedi 3, alongside Sol and Yord and Jackie and stuff, and it's like
yeah.
just funny. I think they sent
Those
a bunch.
they are definitely red shirts, dude. They are so red shirts. That guy, I was like, oh, first one down. Like,
Miscellaneous Jedi, just
yeah,
lots of Jedi gathering.
they're like, oh no, floof bar, and it's like,
It's tough for the Jedi, honestly. Like they just get thrown into these terrible circumstances.
I know, but it's like for hundreds of years, it's like, how hard could it be? It's like we're the toughest thing in the galaxy, and then it's like, well, yeah, be forewarned. So
Okay, but
yeah,
then do you want to jump to the end of that small council meeting where it's like
sure, yeah. When with the little,
Vernestra is like, what do we have that she wants? Which I highlighted and wrote in all caps, and I was like, do Jedi talk about this, like using other people's desires and wants against them? Like that's new territory. I never thought in giving up emotion you would then realize, oh, now, but like because we're emotionless or without attachment, we can now harness
yeah,
other people's attachment and sort of use that as a manipulative tool or something. And then when Soul sort of like highlights that yes, we do have Osha. I was confused about that as from a character point of view for him. Like I just didn't. I feel like he wouldn't want any more strife for the Anasaia sisters, like
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. That felt cold. So I keep waiting for this other shoe to drop, and I don't know if it's because of our conversations or because of the trailer stuff. What I've heard from interviews, but like they're just flirting with it's like the Jedi are going to do something that's going to make me really sad, like really upset about why the Jedi would make such a mistake. But Leslie's just like flirting around the edges with it. Like it's just like it's almost there, but it's not quite. But it's like it's
Yeah, and there's
not.
temptations.
It's very gray area.
Yeah,
Of
and every little
morality.
story beat gets into that too. Where
Yeah.
Osha, we'll talk about it later, sort of is like, Yord, you're gonna have to make the move on my sister because I won't be able to.
Yeah.
And it's just like setting Yord up to be again like that trigger happy sort of like going to lash out sort of Jedi. And I don't know. I'm interested to see. And then even Soul, we'll talk about it. Like Soul takes action in this episode just very quickly against what seems to be a predatorial sort of creature, but it's still quick and it's still like it just I don't know, just seems remorseless and it sort of move on. And it's interesting because like the Jedi, to me, I think like respect and honor all life, and it's interesting that we're flirting with these ideas like you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
Because
very
it's a
morally
gray area.
gray for the
Yeah.
Jedi, but I keep going back through my memory as we do on this pod, and we sort of synergize everything, and I'm like, no, I've seen that before. Like I've seen Jedi do
Oh
that
yeah.
in
Yeah.
a virtuous way, and
I know. It's just Obi-Wan is such a gentleman and a stir when he takes things down that you're just like,
yeah,
is it a one-liner? Like,
yeah, you just need a nice
it's like
snappy
the TV give
one-liner.
a one-liner and then I'll walk away. Like
All is
something where it's
forgiven.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it had to be done. Like it was tough for this creature. But yeah, and yeah, it's interesting to see where the Jedi might end up at the end of the show. But so far, like you're saying, it's just been like they've just been skirting along, these true depths of morality that they could have gone down to possibly like cause a I don't know, probably a reaction in the fan base that's like, wow, Jedi are capable of doing something as dark a
yeah,
deed as this or something. Yeah, I don't know how people would react to it, but I feel like I'm open to like some good, interesting, compelling, dark, you know, um, I guess actions that the Jedi have taken. Like I'm okay with, but it just has to feel organic and like it has to feel
yeah.
like
I have
it makes
faith,
sense
buddy.
that would happen.
I, I know you're worried about this, dude, but I have faith that they're going to do it in a very artful way because everything about this show I've seen so far has been super artful with the interactions and how that all the Jedi are portrayed. I think they're going to do a good thing there. I have a question for you.
Giving
Sorry.
giving Osha the lightsaber was the only thing I was just like, maybe I don't know if you should do that. That's a weapon. That's essentially like a.
She doesn't have a lightsaber, does she?
No, I'm saying when Soul gives the child, when Osha's a child on Brent,
Oh, that
take like
thing.
a lightsaber. I was just like,
Well,
okay, like
yeah, it's a leap of faith, and he knew she was like
I
wanted
love
it.
fear for anything the Jedi do that's slightly questionable.
I mean, Luke was going to hand a lightsaber to Grogu. It was the same thing. It was just sort of like, you want to be a Jedi? It's really cool. We get lightsabers, and
Was
you
that
know,
was that Yoda's lightsaber? I forget.
yeah, it was Yoda's lightsaber. He was like, "You want this?" I mean, talk about Excalibur. We
Yeah,
think about Anakin's lightsaber, Excalibur. Like Yoda's, like was thought destroyed in the Aftermath series. We thought they destroyed it, but it like survived, and it's like
Legend.
that's a weapon that could be 900 years
Yeah.
old. Like,
Oh, it's so legendary.
and like Grogu could have just like had that. I'd polish it up a little.
Anyways,
bit.
the whole "do you have
Yeah.
something
Okay.
she wants" sort of made me cock an eyebrow. Where I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
the Jedi, they're gonna use what tools they can muster against an enemy force,
Yeah.
even if that means taking advantage of a relationship of some kind.
So I have a question for you about that scene because I didn't like. What does Vernestra know? Because she's like, why didn't I mean? So first of all, it validates my one gripe with the previous episode where she's like, how did you leave that poor girl behind? Like, why did you leave when there could have been survivors?
This is also the genius flip, I think. So like if I'm gonna really laud something on the show, I'm gonna applaud the sort of like the cloak like like this sort of like rug pull with Vernest, not rug pull, but I was more like she was played as a sort of like mysterious, possibly knowing more sort of arch, wise character that possibly could have, been a part of what corruption or dirt took place like on Brendock. But in this episode, it pretty much flips it that she's the Vernestra Rowe we know from the High Republic, who just seems ultra compassionate, and like it totally flips the script on her character in a really cool way. Where I was thinking she was in on something, or I thought she was part of this corrupt cover up of some kind, and then in this episode, it kind of flips. You kind of see her motivations are like, how could this happen? Like, I can't believe that girl died. Like when she really just confesses, or like I guess just speaks out about what happened and is like, I can't believe you let her die there, or like left her for dead there.
Yeah, that
like,
poor
girl. What are we doing as Jedi?
Yeah.
And then you're telling me she's come back after 16 years and you're just not telling us. Like, she seems like she doesn't know as much as I thought she did about the situation. Yes. And so that was cool, because now I'm looking at Vernestra Rowe as like this, this ultra sort of like good character that hopefully will come to the rescue of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that means to me that Sol lied to her and has lied to everyone in the Jedi Order about this. I thought Vernestra knew more than
Me too.
everyone.
That's how but I think that's clever. I think that's how the first two episodes are actually written. Like you're made to think
Yeah,
there's more going on with Ernesto Rowe than really there might be, or is she the same character that
right,
you've been reading the High Republic books? You're kind of
right.
accustomed to a certain version of the character.
And it's like, how much does Sol know? How much does Torben know? And Kelnaka and in she was here. So Carrie Ann Moss is Indara.
Indara, yeah,
Yeah, like
and
how
May
much?
chooses to
Yeah,
go after Indara first.
yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out who erased the information from the records. Like that
yeah,
is, to me, I was like, Vanessa Rowe would probably be the only person with clearance to do that. And then like, wait,
yeah,
Indara, Sol, Kelnaka seems like he's peaceful. Like it just seems like because he went out into the woods, it's almost his own version of a bearish vow or something.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I want to know more about that, and I think we'll learn it. You just reminded me of another line that
yeah.
Indira said that was like, I fear that these actions aren't about aren't about the four of you and what happened there. It's about something else. And I fear
You mean
that
Vernestra or Indara?
Vernestra said this. Did I
Okay,
say Indara? Sorry.
you said no. Yeah,
Vernestra, she was like,
yeah.
I worry that this isn't about, this thing with May and what happened on that planet as much as something else. She's like, I feel the scales tipping, which I
Yeah, oh,
assume.
yeah. So yeah, this is a great line where she goes, "I feel May is a small part of a bigger of her
Mm,
master's bigger plan.
yes.
May is a small part of her master's bigger plan. I
Right.
sense a shift, a tipping of the scales. Like I forget what the line is
Yeah,
exactly.
tipping
It's
of the
something of
scales.
that nature, and like that is so juicy for us fans because we know that there's a
There's always a bigger
Sith
plan.
gathering in the void and the sort of like outer edges of the galaxy, like they're in hiding and things like that, and we know that a shift is coming in the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And that's what, I mean, it's hard to think it's still 100 years away. So there might be something more immediate, but maybe not. Maybe this is just the birth. Like maybe this event galvanizes the Sith again.
But again, we're gonna get to the end of this episode and talk about some theories we blasted out there last week, and I feel like Adam. I think Adam locked into something that I really want to talk about towards the end here.
All right.
That I think there's a lot of juicy sort of setup here.
Yeah.
I just don't think the payoff is gonna be the sort of payoff that is like, again, this whole tipping of the scales. This idea is like, if you're an EU nut and you've read the Plagueis novel and you kind of dug into sort of maybe that prehistory with Palpatine, there is a lot of like cosmic force, like tipping of the scales, like a lot of that rhetoric essentially. And so like
Yeah.
this is more of that sort of when Leslie Headland said she's going to bring in legends in the EU. This is the Sith Code, and then this sort of tipping of the scales, this sort of like
Yeah.
seismic shift in the Force type stuff. Like this is some of the stuff I've loved from the EU books that I just feel like I'm so happy that she's now
Yeah.
utilizing, throwing in the show, and really just making something super compelling that keeps me guessing every week. Like the end of this episode, like we're gonna be all week thinking about episode 5 and some of the answers to what's going on
I
here.
know this is gonna be a long week.
Yeah, this is crazy.
So yeah, I mean, I think that wraps up everything from that small council that I wanted to talk about. So
Yep. Yeah.
now we're back on Kofar with Kymir and May.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh, so in Kymir,
this isn't like a theory that we talked about this last
talked
week,
about this
and
all
I am 100% convinced that Kymir.
okay, yeah. Spoiler alert here. We're pretty much almost certain that Kymir is playing both sides of the field here as
Yeah.
two different characters, essentially, as the sort of clumsy, apothecary assassin type character that's like running around with May, who's extraordinarily clumsy and sort of like always, it just seems like
But
he's
kind of
aloof.
super knowledgeable about everything.
But then it has a ton of knowledge and just seems like he's keeping so many secrets at bay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also think he's possibly the master character who is
The
basically
man in the mask.
Yeah, the man in the mask, essentially, and he's also conveniently carrying a bag that is like exact size for like a
A
master.
helmet.
Yeah, yeah, like a helmet and cape. I was like, okay, so that bag is like the exact proportions that you
Yeah.
would need to carry that helmet. We'll talk about it towards the end here, but
Yeah.
it's just
But
funny that he's just walking around with this sort of this
right.
satchel that has to be this large, where May's bag is like much smaller. I feel like.
So what new nuggets did he give us in this scene and that like the scenes leading up to getting to Kelnaka's house?
In these scenes with Chimera and May, well, there's one scene of just wordless running through the jungle that I deeply respect, and I just want to say that like there's
Yes.
like a montage of them just like running through the jungle, and it's great.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening in those scenes is she's kind of interrogating about him further about his connection to the
Yeah.
master.
She
And
finally asked a question we were all wondering, like, what? Who the heck are you, by the way? Like,
yeah,
he's
like
like,
I
he
was
just
telling
collects
you, and
people.
he's like, oh, I just owe him. He's like, it just seems like he's
Yeah,
lying. Like
yeah,
there's so much going on there that I think is so fun and interesting. Um, Manny Jacinto, the actor, just plays that character
dude,
perfectly.
so
It's
great.
such a good character. It's like one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time at this
Yeah,
point. It's just
yes.
such a cool character.
I
Kind of.
mean, yeah. Hats off to whoever
Yeah.
casted him because, like, God, he's so perfect for Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a highlight of the show for sure. And
Yeah.
like the show, I don't want to say the show just gets, muddled in Jedi bureaucracy and police duty, but like it does at times. And
Ah,
like
when
he
they're
is
like,
such
come
a
out
breath
in
of
the name
fresh
of the
air. Like,
law. Yeah,
yeah, he is just such a breath of fresh air.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's happening. It seems like he's lying about something.
Is there any
Running
other
through the
nuggets
jungle.
he gave us along the way? I mean, yeah, it was definitely the sort of like, oh, I owe him, and you know how he likes to collect people.
Collect people? I was like, what? I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, it's just the two of you, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there's something else going on here that I really want to get to at the end. And yeah, it's sort of a
Because he's,
genre idea that I want to talk about. But
we'll get there. We'll get
yeah,
there.
we're
Put it in your pocket. I
yeah.
mean, he's so he's encouraging her. He's keeping her focused. He's listening to her, and she's trying to discern the puzzle that is like, how do you kill a Jedi unarmed when a Jedi won't attack an unarmed person? And he's like, you got to do it. He's like, there's a way. You got to do it. And I mean, I do think the lesson there is like the my guess was like you need to find the cracks in the Jedi code. It's sort of like, oh no, you can make it. The Jedi aren't perfect. That's the whole thing. The Jedi will mess you up if you trigger them the right way. But I don't. I think that's a lesson that the master's trying to teach. But I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean,
Anything else about
yeah,
that?
that's she says this is the final lesson he's trying to teach. He says he's trying to teach me, and it's but she says it's impossible to kill a Jedi unarmed.
Yeah.
And then Chimera says, "No, it's not. Like you can do it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, everyone has a weakness. Even the first episode, he's like, everyone has or second episode, he's like, everyone has a weakness. He's he just needs her to complete the task as well, which is super suspicious. I'm like,
Yeah.
why is he so dependent on her executing this task? Like
Why
there's
does he
just a
care?
lot going on motivation wise that I'm just fascinated by. And
And like
he's
if
like
he's
a
a fellow,
squire for her. I don't understand what's going on.
yeah, like what's his role? Like if he's another acolyte,
Yeah.
then like they should be competing. I guess she doesn't think he's force sensitive. We'll see.
Well, she tried to take him out in an alley, and he just like deftly dealt with her knife
Right.
attack.
Yeah, he
So,
did.
too.
He did avert that knife attack. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Anyways, he says that, yeah, of course you can. And then I do want to get to that whole like killing a Jedi unarmed. I think it really is like we've been talking about is just ways to sort of pull apart the idea of the Jedi, mythos and like what they are, what would actually instill fear in a Jedi, right? Like I feel like someone coming at them and attacking them like unarmed is the Joker to Batman essentially. It's this idea
Yeah.
that's just like I'm just going to use all these tools and cause all this mayhem and destruction, but I'm not going to really like hurt anyone. It's just going to be these horrific things happening around you that I'm doing, but you can't really
Yeah.
you're not going to take out, you're not going to be violent against me because I'm not like, I feel like he's
He
taking a
doesn't wear
back
any
seat to the,
armor. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, how do you deal with that sort of a threat? And I think that destroys the Jedi maybe psychologically because they're not accustomed to dealing with that sort of violence. That's this,
Right.
yeah,
I can't not think about the Nihil. For those of our
right,
listeners that are reading the High Republic, and the Nihil is the big bad, and they're just like chaotic terrorists, really. And yeah, and so I'm wondering how it got out of that. But it's that what you just explained stands in stark contrast to the Nihil. That's just like overtly evil. All this stuff. This is sort of like more, like
psychological warfare with the Jedi. Yeah, essentially.
yeah, and like hidden evil. I can't think of the right word for it, but hidden will have to do. Sort of
Yeah,
like the way that we know Plagueis and Insidious fought.
yeah. It's a total mind game as well as a violent act against a Jedi. It's
Yeah,
like, I'm going to fight you unarmed, which means you're not going to draw your saber, essentially.
yeah,
And that she's constantly reaching for the saber. They really highlight that she's always kind of trying to grab a saber and strike a Jedi down with the saber.
Who is May?
May, yeah, she reaches for
Oh,
Indars
trying
a
to
couple
grab
times, and
theirs.
then reaches for
Yes,
souls couple
right.
times, and it's just
And
that's not
Chimere
unarmed.
brings.
Essentially, that's wielding a saber after you
Yeah,
you do
you've
grab it.
taken it. Yeah, but she's thinking that, and it's funny because Chimere highlights that too. And he's like, "Do you think you're just gonna steal their saber?" And like, it's like, how does he know she's tried that twice? You know?
Yeah. I do. This gets to some theorizing I've done after watching this episode,
Okay.
which is just like, I want to talk about maybe why she has to kill a Jedi unarmed,
Okay. Okay.
and also sort of like what that could showcase that maybe an outsider is watching. What that means essentially.
Yeah.
We'll talk about
Yeah.
that at the end. But
I guess
do we get
just
Basil yet? Do we get Tracker Mouse?
I think
yet?
now we get Basil.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a highlight of the episode. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool character.
Yeah. Basil, super fun.
Yeah.
Just a little
So
creepy,
cute.
kind of cute. Yeah.
A gopher
a little,
creature.
kind of like, yeah.
Alien. Yeah.
Like Winnie the Pooh and
And then I
on the
love the
beaver.
line where Yord's like, I didn't learn Shriwook. I learned a different language. And I think that's how he
Yeah.
communicates with Basil. And so it's like, I thought that was so cool. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. The Jedi can specialize in all these different languages, and and how that will play out in their duties and questing. Really, like, oh, I need to, because I learned this language. There's, they're actually really good trackers. I'm gonna, I have a tracker on
Yeah.
speed dial.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Very-
like also showcases what a try-hard Yord is, which is like so great.
Yord trying to like, seize Osha's blaster. I was like,
Yeah.
how dare you? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? She was, first of all, she was like a fellow Padawan.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. It was like your buddy. Like, calm down, Yord. He's such a try-hard, and I love that.
It's on stun.
Yeah, it's a stun weapon. Like, it just pipe down, buddy. Ugh. Oh yeah. No, I don't even hate him because I just love how on brand he is all the time. Yeah,
He is
Yord.
funny in this episode though. I was like laughing quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because they lose their tracker at some point. He's like, we're gonna need to hire a tracker to find our tracker, and I was like, great bit. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great bit. Yeah, and he was there. And what anything else with the Jedi? I mean, obviously a bunch of red shirts. Not to be cynical about it, but it's great to see a bunch of Jedi. And then
Like exploring, that was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there's like some dude named like Holden or something. I don't know. I kind of missed the name, but yeah, some guy that's obviously going to be the first one to die out in front doing the thing. But yeah, it was nice to see a squad of like 7 or 8 Jedi together.
Yeah.
And all I could think seeing them is like, I saw this in the trailer. I know what's coming.
We're going to the dark, misty jungle.
Yeah,
What happens? Yeah.
Here we are. Yeah, I guess there's not much more lore
Insect
bites
fight
there.
that happened.
Yeah.
The things on the trees and
Yeah.
Soul just quickly igniting blue lightsaber.
Yeah.
Oh, we knew he had a blue lightsaber, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've seen it before.
We've seen it before. Yeah, he busts out the blue.
Yeah, and I really loved that moment with May being like, "Yeah, all I did was use the Force. I sensed them, and now it's dead." And because
You
I
mean
felt that
OSHA?
too. OSHA, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, with OSHA, and yeah, I felt that too. And that's something that's like kind of popping up more in Star Wars. It used to be like, "Oh, big scary monster, kill it," and Favreau's still not afraid to do that. But it's getting harder and harder to digest. So many people have pets and love animals and are just like, we don't know. Yeah, it's scary looking, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It's attracted to the light. It's a moth, essentially.
right. They say that after, right? They're like,
Yeah,
it was attracted to
it
light.
went
They're like
right for
taking
your
notes in
lightsaber.
real time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
and it's like, and so did you have to kill it? Like, I don't know. I
You
don't know
could
if
have like
Obi-Wan.
you could have pulled your lightsaber. It could have flown towards you, and then you could have like force held it, or like
Yeah,
done something, and then you know.
yeah,
Well, what's great there is it's like a echo of what OSHA and May did with those little like uh,
yeah.
jellyfish,
Butterfly
little butterfly
jellyfish.
jellyfish things.
Yeah,
But it's like a bigger version of that, just showcasing Soul has really attuned. He's really attuned to the
yeah.
Force, essentially.
And I think OSHA is too. I think she
Oh yeah,
is very connected to the living force, and like the fact when she was a kid was like connecting with these creatures, and so she feels that.
yeah.
She feels
There's
it when
definitely a
some.
build up happening there. There's a setup to something major with the Force
Yeah,
and OSHA because she's like explicitly, "I'm not a Jedi" at the beginning of the episode. Then she's like telling Jackie later at this moment in the episode that she felt its presence in the Force, and then she said something and it's dead essentially, and
yeah.
the cause and effect of that, and sort of yeah. There's something there's another shoe to drop there with OSHA. I think a major
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Force event, of some
I
kind.
think there may be a couple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess we can rush ahead to, they're hurrying to beat the May and Chimera are hurrying to beat the sunfall, the sunset.
Hmm.
And then he's like, "Oh, you need some water? I'll go get you some water." I'm like, "Here it comes."
Oh yeah.
And
I thought he was gonna leave his like poncho in the bag, and then I think he snatches it and runs off. And I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah, you can't leave the helmet there, my guy."
yeah, yeah, you need that.
No, it's not
Yeah,
gonna be Chimera now. It's like almost so set up that
right.
it's too perfect.
But she then a like wild change of heart by May, which I was like, "Oh God, this is
Yeah,
setting us up."
it's huge.
She's like, "I'm gonna just turn myself in." Essentially, she's like, "I don't care about this guy. I care about my sister. That's all I care about."
Yeah, she goes, "My loyalty is to my sister,
Yeah.
and
Now
I'm
that I
just
know
gonna
she's
turn
alive.
myself in."
Yeah. Which is wild
Which
because
is
she fought her.
great. The
Yeah.
insight and the sort of like logic going on there is fascinating. It's actually like it's so good. It's very altruistic. Like you instantly believe in May again as a good character. She
Yeah.
bends solos so hard in this moment.
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm in. Like let's go. Let's go to the light. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is something Soul said earlier in the episode. He's just like, "No, there's still good in her," which is like, obviously that resonates with Star Wars
Yeah.
fans. But yeah. And then she just comes to it on her own, which is wild, which kind of goes against my, May is a sociopath theory. But yeah, I mean, that she came around. And then, of course, the, heart wrenching realization that she was too late to save Kalnaka.
Oh yeah. Yeah. First of all, she betrays Chimera.
Chimera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he gets sets a booby trap for him, ensnares him, and then she's like tells him all of this that she's just going to go side with her sister and she's no longer going to serve the master. And then he says he'll kill you.
Yeah. He'll kill you.
And Chimera, that's a different tone for Chimera.
Yes. He had a different tone when he was upside down.
Just want to highlight that quickly as we move on.
When he's flipped on his face, the lighting was like darker on his features.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, yeah,
It was-
hitting us over the head with it. If it's
No,
not
no,
Chimera.
but again, maybe we could. And then again, I want to talk about stuff towards the end here. This is so exciting. We're getting to the end of this episode. So, anyways, May. First of all, she meets their tracker, the lost tracker.
Yes.
Lost tracker. They
Bezel.
tracker. She falls into some spores, and then she looks up, and the little gopher tracker character Basil's right in front of her.
Yeah.
And she runs off, and then he screams, and then the Jedi run to, Kelnaka's house, but May gets there first, gets inside, finds Kelnaka. He has a scorching saber wound.
Smoldering
Yeah.
saber wound. Smolderingly fresh saber wound across the belly.
Which is tough because as a viewer, I wanted more Kelnaka. Like I was like,
we'll get more Kelnaka.
No, we will. I'm sure there'll be like flashbacks. The show's already shown that like you're getting lots more of the Jedi in the past as well, and we have the whole May POV from the Brendok that's totally missing.
Also, so the Kelnaka scene. So we saw one scene, 2 episodes ago about Kelnaka, and he's just like, he sees danger, he scares it off. Who could get close enough to him as he's just sitting in his own home to cut his belly without Kelnaka picking up a lightsaber or reacting? Like, I have to feel like
there's something. So I want to talk
someone
about,
that looked inauspicious, like not dangerous, that was able to get that close enough to him and then defeat him.
Sure. Are you talking about sort of Jedi sensory and how it didn't really know?
No, I'm saying like it was too close, like true crime stuff. Like there was no fight. There was no signs of a struggle. It was like someone he knew or he didn't, or didn't feel threatened by. Like it could have been, I don't know, Chimere. Maybe Chimere stole Kelnaka's lightsaber and killed him with it, or he pulled his own red lightsaber on him, and took him by surprise, that sort of thing.
That's interesting. It's a,
You know what I mean? Like it was like, oh, there's no fingernail marks on the, there was no sign of a struggle, or like, there's no bruising around the arms where the wrists were tied, like that sort of true crime stuff. There's none of that with Kelnaka.
Well, this is detective genre, and I feel like I have to think that there's like 3 options here, and every scene is there's going to have different options and keep the audience sort of guessing in different directions, because you don't want it to be like a linear story where you just understand all the elements at play. And I feel like it's either May's correct that it's her master who got in there somehow and cut his chest.
Yeah.
It's either the specific Jedi that Vernestra Rowe names to go on the quest, because I was like, why is this a named Jedi? Like, right? Doesn't she send someone to go with them, like out of the small council meeting? That's not Soul, because like I can't imagine Soul.
That woman, the female Jedi, but she was in the party, right? Or do you think she sent them ahead of that Jedi ahead of time?
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's something that could be. You would put that.
I didn't think about that.
You would put that set up there for a payoff here.
Because she wasn't in this Jedi party.
I thought she was.
Well then, okay, then why would?
But why? Well, she couldn't have snuck around the back and then snuck back out of the front. Like something like that. I don't know.
I mean, that'd be very surreptitious.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing out
wicked.
Different plausible ways this could happen. And
it's not a really clean suicide.
And then what did you say? Kelnaka did this to himself or something? What did you say?
No, I just mean like whoever killed him, he wasn't threatened by for whatever reason. You know what I mean? At first.
But what if it was just a sneak attack, essentially?
You're going to sneak into a Wookiee's home and kill him? I mean, maybe he like went through the air ducts and came out of the ceiling and dropped and cut his belly before he could react. Or it was like someone he welcomed into his home and then was killed. But I don't know. I guess either of those things are fine. But I thought it might have been like, if you just see Chimera and he's like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm lost, blah, 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 I need help, blah, here's a lightsaber to your belly.
That's interesting. I think I have a theory for what is going on here, if it is the Master specifically, but I don't know. I have no other theories for Jedi having done this or cover-up stuff happening. I just have no idea. Like,
right. Well, May seems to think it's the Master.
What?
Like, May believes it's the Master, right?
Yeah, May thinks it's the Master, and then she goes, he's here. Yeah, like a great sort of horror moment. It's very evocative of Obi-Wan almost, where she's just hiding behind the door, looking through the crack at what dark, Lord of the Sith is going to arrive or something. And
Yeah, and Soul senses it.
So I want to talk about this. Yeah, we're gonna get into all this. Let's do this beat by beat by beat here. I
Okay.
feel like so he's here. The Jedi all arrive outside Kelnocka's house. They're like, May, come out. You know, if you're in there, come out. Um, uh, Identify yourself or whatever. Um, and then Osha's standing behind all the Jedi, and then like behind Osha, you see in a very kind of like a horror scene, almost like out of
Yeah.
a possession movie or something. You like this the dark clad helmeted character, the master character we saw in episode one, just is like levitating and slowly just drifting towards Osha and lowering to the ground, and it's like it is some awesome
Dark.
like
Yeah.
dark side like horror.
Yeah. Soft
You know,
focus on the dark
it's
character
so
that's
cool.
sneaking behind you. Oh,
And then walks up to her and much like most like a horror film, like gets within inches of her face and just you get the best look you've seen of the mask yet.
yeah.
And
10
I
out of
do
10 on
want to
that
say
mask.
that like I feel like you can see like almost like Sith eyes in the mask, or like you can see like a
Oh.
glint and like the eye light of
Yeah.
the actor in the mask. It's very cool. I've watched that scene a few times. I've looked at the characters like hands and bracers and lightsaber quite a bit, just trying to like glean what I can. But yeah, the master walks right up to Osha, ignites red lightsaber, like, and it's a clean red lightsaber. Like
Yeah.
it does not have the Kylo crackle at all. Like
Yeah.
this is it. We're back. Um, it's pretty exciting. And then so this is also interesting motivation stuff here too, because like much like the script is kind of flipped on for Nestra, the script is kind of flipped on the master here for me as a viewer, who I thought the master was doing something maybe more calculated with the twins. He just throws Osha to the side. He
Yeah.
just like whips her, like force just throws her with
Yeah.
two fingers essentially, which
Yeah.
it was a huge throw, and it was like already like a massive, showcase of his force power.
Yeah.
And then the Jedi all ignite their sabers and rush him, and he just extends his hand, and it's the biggest force push you've seen on screen
Yeah. Like Mace
since
Windu status.
Sabine
Like,
in like a
right.
Star Destroyer or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
it was-
Massive. And then cut to credits.
Yeah, and then and then
Roll
it's
credits.
kind of like a reverse shot of him again, and like credits or something, and it's like so quick. It was crazy how big of a cliffhanger that was, and
Yeah.
it's crazy because that was like in the trailer essentially. And
Yeah,
it was
that
like,
was-
oh, what's the answer to what's going on here? And then like this is like, guess what? More of like this trailer just leading me to next week.
Yeah.
Oh no, I need
Yeah.
more.
Now you can really think about it for another week, and
Yeah.
then we'll give you the answer, hopefully. Or well, at least we'll see what the fallout
It's
is.
too bad Adam's not here, because after this episode, I'm just jumping on his theory and his train, because I feel like the helmet looks old. Like we were not that close to it, I think, in episode 1, but we get a nice like extreme close up of the helmet.
Yeah, it's almost like a little Kitsugi too. Like there's like sort of gold like scratches or markings.
It looks like
or
rusted too in parts, and like just looks
Yeah.
ancient essentially.
the jagged mouth around the like neck. It looks amazing. I didn't realize it's almost like wolf like.
Oh
Yeah, and it's
like canine teeth, like the teeth inside.
yeah. It looked a little like canine-esque.
Yeah,
to me,
no,
it's like
I see
it
that.
doesn't have like a snout on it, but it's like from the front, it looks very different than from the side. I guess it's just like a bucket, but it looked like it had a lot more dimensions from the front.
Yeah.
Really, just like cool reveal.
So that helmet looks absolutely ancient, and it's making the gears turn in my head.
Okay,
And
here we are. We're
I
there.
think I'm
We're
with
here.
Adam. I think I'm with Adam from now on. I think this is a good out for just Star Wars, story group, and like and Leslie, and just in terms of like not really addressing the Sith, but like again skirting around the morality of the Jedi, skirting around the Sith, that are supposed to be out there, yet in canon we haven't established exactly who is out there right But I feel like I gotta jump on Adam's theory here. I do think this is like a Dr. Aphra Adventure of the Month comic, and this helmet is essentially a like Sith artifact that I feel like maybe possesses people when they put it on, much like Momin. It's
Right. It's
essentially some
precedented, the
Momin stuff
Moment
for people
mask.
who are
Yeah.
uninitiated with the Vader comics, which is tough because as a deep canon head, I'm like it was kind of that character's motif, but like it's
Right. Can
fine
you
to
do that
now.
twice? I don't think you can do that twice,
Yeah, it's
Grant.
tough to do it twice essentially for like us deep canon nuts, and so like but like the more I look at that episode helmet and think about it, I'm like, oh, this feels like a Sith relic essentially. And then the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think that like the person in the helmet is essentially an acolyte, right? Like an acolyte who worships the Sith and whatever this helmet represents and is trying to learn from it. But maybe the helmet is much like Momin's mask. It's sort of like wants things of you, right? Like the One Ring essentially just like it has desires. It has
Ancient
an affinity
plans
to Sauron, right? Like it wants to get back to him,
to its
and it's like
master.
this mask maybe wants something. This mask maybe feeds off the fear of Jedi, right? And like fighting a Jedi unarmed is going to cause the Jedi to have fear, and therefore like this ancient Sith, mask or relic or something like that maybe desires that fear, like that or that psychological drain on the Jedi or I don't know, but like I started to think about that, and then I also thought about how Soul senses the character, and like wouldn't you sense this character from wouldn't you sense this character immediately even if they landed on the planet or they were in Kelnaka's hut? Like wouldn't you immediately sense like the dark side that's present in this character? But
No, I mean the
only
dark.
turns on with the mask,
I think it's pretty clearly precedented that like the dark side is a blind spot for the Jedi. Like they don't, and I think from expanded universe stuff we know that like Sidious was able to hide his power, that he learned it from Plagueis and all that. But that's a common thread is that the Jedi just have a blind spot for the dark side, and I don't know if that's through dark side sorcery or if that's just the nature of the Force, but. Yeah, I mean, but he sensed something.
the proximity
sure.
like that. It was very close when
Yeah.
they sensed it.
It's like if he starts using the Force, then it's like, oh, okay, there's this massive Force vortex occurring somewhere in the woods, and it has malintent. Like, yeah, that was the vibe I got off Saul. Was like, he's like, something's in the woods, like, and
And then it's also convenient that Chimere is nowhere to be seen in this moment. Essentially ensnared in the woods still, and then the master, somehow shows up deep in the jungle here where no starship could land at any spaceport. It's like you're deep in the jungle.
So he would have to be there sort of waiting to oversee if it wasn't Chimere. I mean, it's just a little too. So we're firmly into
But I'm also
theoretical space
Chimere,
right now.
I mean, Chimere has a helmet that is an ancient Sith artifact that he puts on, and it basically demands things of him. And I don't think it demands things of him. I think it wants like a new host or something like that. And this seems like a genre, like a horror genre thing, where it's almost like a cursed object that has a virality to it that he is trying to escape or pass on, and that May is trying to break from. And he and Chimere, if this is all playing into the Chimere theory, and the Chimere theory could be wrong, but like, and Chimere wants her to do this thing that the mask essentially wants,
So he can be free of it.
Move on to a new subject or a new host, essentially, because
Okay.
that's my theory. I don't know what's going on, but just to me that seems like a pretty, like, I don't know. It could be a crazy Sith character, but like the level of force power was also like this is
insane.
ancient arcane magic of some kind.
Yeah. I love that for you. I love that for Adam. I think it's a brilliant theory. I think it's super fun, but I don't think like if he like the mask itself had ancient plans, like it had accumulated this knowledge over generations or hundreds of years through like different users, and it's like it actually has a good Sith plan, and like it's sort of this is what's propelling people forward. Like I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not saying it's not possible. It sounds like an awesome idea. I think they're going to go a much simpler route with this. I think it's just, this is Chimere. I think he's a wannabe. He's a very powerful force, dark side force being that's like maybe learned a little bit about Sith history, collector of things. And and in my headcanon, they're going to go through all these trials and tribulations, and maybe he'll get a true apprentice. Maybe we'll find out there's another master, but I think he's going to draw the ire of the true Sith, and the Sith are just going to come wipe him out, and then they're going to fly away.
Yeah, we have been talking about this for a couple episodes now. The bigger fish idea of like, does this show all end with a giant reveal of sort of like what actual Sith exist out in the galaxy who catch wind of what's going on?
You get Tenebris and a 16-year-old Plagueis fly up.
Profile.
Yeah. They're like, no, you're ruining all our plans. Like he's like, no, we are the Sith, but the real Sith, like Tenebris and Plagueis roll up like a 16-year-old Plagueis, and in their black robes, and they just in perfect condition because they haven't been. Actually, I don't think Tenebris would have been hurt at this time. And they just wipe him out, and then they fly away.
I don't need it. It would be a wild EU drop, but like,
and then no one would get it except for us. No one would be like, Sith Smith.
Canon though, like I think
I know, but it's like if you were a casual fan and you just saw two other Darksiders come in, dispatch you, and be like, "You'll never be the true Sith," and then fly away. But like, I kind of
the buy-in would be wild. People would be like, "All red lightsabers in celebration."
Yeah. I know, but they'd be like, you can't treat, it is not time to reveal ourselves. You are not part of the plan.
Right.
You will never be Sith.
Yeah, because that line in Phantom where at last we will have.
And if that's Ki-Adi-Mundi,
it just sounds like at last. Like how long have they been planning? Like,
right.
I need to know.
Yeah, and so if you follow this podcast, we keep getting stuck on like the Ki-Adi-Mundi conundrum.
Oh yeah,
like a paradox. Which is like because he had that line in Phantom Menace that the Sith have not been seen for 1,000 years or 100 generations or whatever it was.
Yeah, a millennia. Yeah,
a millennia.
1,000.
Then you can't the Jedi can't know the Sith exists. Or,
exactly.
It can't get back to them. So it's funnier that if that was Ki-Adi-Mundi in that like thing, right? Because he's the guy who said it, and if he was involved and he still doesn't know.
See, that's what I think.
Or then we find out he's lying.
Covering the bases there. I think she's like, no, Ki-Adi-Mundi's actually a pretty big part of this plan, and he's
right.
And basically, so when we Scooby-Doo the master, and you see it's Chimere who's just possessed by an artifact, you're just like, oh, no Sith. This is just a weirdo. This was the acolyte.
Listen, I love your theory.
It was just a worshiper of ancient Sith.
Yeah, that is a very
perfect out. You know what I mean? Where I'm just.
Yeah,
it's a perfect out that Adam even brings up last episode. So it just congrats to Adam on that early inkling. But
yeah. I mean,
it's a great
had
out.
It earlier.
Yeah. It's like doesn't have to deal with it. But again, I love what you're talking about, where it's like the show can you can.
There's a lot of outs.
Eat it too, basically, which is you can do this whole thing where Ki-Adi-Mundi is befuddled by what happened here, and he's definitely admitting that there's no Sith involvement here, but then at the same time you can show Sith involvement because they're like, we heard the Jedi were, you don't think we're hacking into the archives and seeing what they're working on and what's going on, like we know that they thought this was possible Sith activity with the red lightsaber. But
yeah, so I just thought of a third option,
sure,
and what it heretofore known as the third option.
I love it.
Ki-Adi-Mundi does know they're Sith, and he was lying.
Dude, that's incredibly tough for all of us like hyper canon heads who are just like, so how do you do the Sith?
No,
like,
but
so the Sith, you got to go back 1,000 years plus.
But then if he's lying, dude, then other Jedi could have been lying, and then you can put Sith the whole way back through that millennia. It like opens up all these doors. If Ki-Adi-Mundi, like there's all these Jedi holding it under their hats. Like we don't want this to be a thing, so we're gonna will it to not be true, even though we saw it with our eyes. Like, I mean, that would make for a very flawed Jedi Order, but it would open up all these Sith stories over that. It
takes away from the poetry of sort of their downfall, though, right? Because they became too bloated of an institution, and
Well, that's pretty bloated if their people are lying about the real threat against the Jedi. I don't know. Yeah,
No, you're right.
I'm just throwing that. I'm just
To me,
throwing that
it's
in the ether.
unforgivable that he would lie about that, but it's like it's
I
basically
never liked
denying a terror
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
cell exists or denying, just a terrible organization exists. Like that is,
Yeah.
I would try to. I think everyone should shed light on any information that they find about the Sith, essentially, right? Like,
Ki-Adi-Mundi is the Sith, and like no one knew. I don't know. Like I've never liked
I
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
can't get behind that. I like Ki-Adi-Mundi quite a bit, and I like
I'm
the aspect
sorry.
of pushing the Sith back in the timeline because it to me it's more interesting if you're forcing storytellers to go back and explore what that all was than
Yeah.
to just live around the Skywalker saga and explore what Sith are dwelling in the shadows. Because again, I think about Star Wars in terms of dynamics, especially in eras, right? The eras are dynamics, right? And like the Galactic Civil War, the Sith and the Empire rule the galaxy essentially, but
Yeah.
it's little S Sith, right? It's just Darth Vader and Palpatine, right? And we haven't seen big S Sith yet. And I'm excited to see that, and I want to know what that looks like, essentially.
Yes.
And so you have that era of the Galactic Civil War and the two ruling Sith, but again, it's only two, and so you just don't feel like you're really getting a lot, or compared to other ancillary material where there's lots of Sith explored and numerous Sith in battle and things like that. Then you have this era, right, which is pre-prequels, where you basically have to have the Sith in hiding, and so there's only so much you can do with the Sith in hiding because and then so I feel like that's cool for this era, though. It's cool when the Sith are in hiding. I think that's a very interesting, mysterious sort of narrative device for them. But then, I would like to go back and explore, lots of Sith and see what that looks like.
I want to talk about the High Republic a little bit because we have this like era that was created just in publishing, right? That spans a pretty long bit of time. It's
like 300 years, 400
450 years to 350 years before the Battle of Yavin, and then it's 250 years if we include Acolyte still in the High Republic era.
Okay, it's the end. It's basically the twilight of the High Republic.
Yeah, but the funny thing is we still don't know. We don't have any resolution to the massive, massive, massive threat that the galaxy faces by the Nihil, and yet we're getting this sequel when we don't know really what like the end game and what happens.
I thought someone would have said Nihil Raiders at this point in the show.
Yeah,
it's like it's not like we're dealing with Nihil Raiders, like quickly, just offhandedly done. Like
right. Yeah, it's not like thank God it's not the Nihil, and like it's just like you don't mention that name ever. Like I'm wondering what that fallout is, and has it made the Jedi like if you're reading the High Republic, you're just like kill them, just kill them all. And at least that's my POV. Like with the Nihil, they're always just like, oh, but like they don't ever want to take a life. And despite how many like lives the Nihil recklessly take, like do they finally cross that line and they're like, we need to do the hard work to save the galaxy, and the morally tough work to save the galaxy. And then
maybe you're right. Maybe that's the break. I think this is such a brilliant point you bring up. I think that fighting the Nihil, and they're these like basically like drugged out, they're on like glitter stim, and they have like they have like gnarly violent cybernetic appendages. They're like space pirates and raiders and pillage and kill like recklessly and just try to inflict as much damage and pain and hurt on people as possible. That fighting that sort of and again, we could have been describing the Sith here, right? Like, but it's these are more like, I don't know, they're sort of like renegade punk anarchist sort of characters.
Anarchist. Yeah, they're nihilists. They believe in nothing.
They're nihilists. Yeah, essentially. I was just trying to use every other word other than nihilist.
I think it's appropriate. I think it's appropriate in this context.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfectly appropriate.
We believe in nothing.
And fighting them over and over again.
My girlfriend cut off her toe.
I think
it's okay, Donnie. These men are cowards.
I think that's a brilliant point, though, because I feel like you're right. I think you're onto something. I think they're maybe a little bit more martial now. Like maybe they are willing to draw a saber and just cut down something that is clearly a threat. And they're very like attentive. They're very attentive police force. Like I've noticed, like
Yeah,
the
they're very
urgency in which
policey.
they treat this matter is like it just seems a little dialed up to me. Like I thought there would be a few scenes of just Soul like plucking his eyebrow, looking out at the Jedi,
Yeah,
trainees or something like that, and like give him a little bit more introspection. But they're urgently dealing with this matter, and it's interesting to see that urgency, and it makes me feel like maybe they do, or maybe they are quick to violence because they fought the Nile for so long, and they're just quick to apprehend or
yeah. And they learned a lesson from their mistake, or was like, we could have just saved so many lives by cutting them down. But I mean, that's a wild lesson. But it does feel like the prequel era Jedi are way more contemplative. They're way more mindful. They're just sort of like, even though they do ultimately get
they're
duped.
like stagnant, but it's okay.
A little bit, yeah. Like
Yeah.
maybe analysis paralysis
Yes.
to bring some LinkedIn into this conversation.
Yeah.
Bring some Harvard Business School into
Yeah.
this
It just
conversation.
feels like, yeah, the leadership is definitely something you could be critical about in the prequel era, but at the same time, Leslie Headland has said something as far as that this show is going to show why they sort of drop the regal gold trim and sort of take on that
Yeah,
drab appearance, which is so interesting. I'm just interested about that. I think the Jedi understand they're fallible in the
yeah,
prequel era, and yet we constantly point out their fallacies as commentators and fans and audience members of Star Wars. And I think that they beat everyone to the punch, essentially, where they're like, actually, we're fallible.
yeah.
That's why we're analysis paralysis. That's why we're blinded. That's why we have no idea what's going on, because we lost that sort of like idea that we're infallible guardians of peace and justice.
Yeah. Which could have prompted Sidious to strike when he struck. He's just like, okay, now they're really just part of the bureaucracy, and they're going to
Yeah.
be as mired as everyone else.
Yeah. And so that's fascinating.
Yeah, and we don't know. It's kind of fun. We don't know the ending of either of these stories. And oddly, we're going to get the ending of Acolyte before we get the ending of the High Republic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's interesting because I was hoping for Vernestra Rose, massive connective tissue to the novels
Yeah,
and that space, and you almost want to see maybe how the Vernestra Rose story plays out in the novels now, as it
yeah,
play, as it compares to the show and what's going on here, and Vernestra Rose seems to have an extended lifespan, but not around 100 years after this story, like
yeah.
right, because the prequels are what 100 odd
100
years
years
after?
later.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
not
so she
there.
doesn't make it another 100 years. I mean, that could be she lives a long, full life and passes away peacefully in her sleep, or not.
We are seeing that purple light whip, though. I'm certain.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
how could we
right.
not? That's like I'm almost like there's no reason to even have Ernesto in the show other than to be like,
Yeah,
we want a super sage Jedi connects to the High Republic. I get that, but like you're having her in the show, and then that she has like maybe she's the coolest Jedi to ever fight ever. If you read the High
yeah.
Republic books, she's like all you want to
She's
do is see her
she's OP
fight.
at like 14 years old. She's OP, and so like at 114 years
Yeah,
old,
it's like forget
she's
about it.
yeah, she's gonna
And
be
like you
elite.
see how this like Sith, master character, I'm not Sith, we don't know yet. This master sort of like
Wannabe
descends
Sith.
on the Jedi and just ousts them. And I was just like, Vernestra Rowe is like could meet that character head on, like
Yeah,
no problem.
no
Like if
problem.
you've read the books, like it's
And I love the power scaling that's been in this show, where
yeah,
it's sort of like, well, like when you first see Indara, sorry, I keep
yeah,
thinking Indira Stokes.
Indira Stokes or whatever from
Yeah,
Republic books if you've read them. Yeah,
yeah, Indara.
yeah,
You're like, wow, no one's beating this woman, and you wouldn't have if she hadn't, there hadn't been a bystander nearby, and then and then you see the sort of the power of the Bearish Vow that Torben had was like almost impenetrable, and that was like a flex. And then you see Soul, who is like, oh well, he clearly overmatches. Clearly
yeah. You're just
overmatches
dying to
him.
see Vernestra now. It's like the
Yeah,
last
and so now we
Jedi
see
you want to
this
see.
power scale,
Yeah,
which is way above them. And I think when you see Vernestra, you're going to see someone that can really wrangle the
yeah.
situation. And I wonder if we're going to be sympathetic to the master when this is all said and done. If they find their demise at the hand of Ernesto or something like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. Just to be fair to our listeners, though, we did think there was going to be a giant Wookiee sort of SmackDown cage match, but
yeah, no, they couldn't do that because.
So this is how wrong we can be at times too, though.
Yeah.
So just letting you guys know, we could be wrong about everything we just do.
Oh my gosh, we're always wrong. But it's like my view is like it's quantity. Like if I throw every idea out there, like a tenth of them might be somewhere close to correct. But
it's fun to talk about it, honestly.
I know.
Like the show begs the conversation. It's like, go ahead. Who do you think is who, and what's going on here? That's why, because the mystery is such a central part of the show, where it's like Chimere being the master at this point, and what other big mysteries you hear? I guess May's symbol being sought after by the Sith. Like, I'm hoping for some more subversions past these ideas that like I'm already contemplating.
But yeah, I mean, I did not have Kel Naka studying the deep lore of the witches of Bartok on my on my bingo card at all. That was fascinating. Like, what is did they really commit genocide? How did they all die? What happened on the other side of Osha's POV? Like, yeah, there's a ton of mysteries in here, man.
We've got a Dark Night of the Soul coming up too, because Dark Night of the Soul. Wow, just everything going on with that idea. With you thinking that the title of the next episode is Night, and I'm agreeing with you, it probably is Night. The sun sets at the end of the episode. She says he's here. It gets really dark in Kelnaka's cabin space. It's now night when the master descends on them. Mm-hmm. And we explored the entire planet, I think, during the day in this episode.
Yeah.
And so now is it night on Kofar and some stuff going down? And is this character going to hunt every Jedi through the woods like we thought after watching the trailers? Because we know that no Jedi can basically escape and give word of
what happened there.
Lightsaber wielding character, because that's essentially a signifier of the Sith, right? Like that's just the fabled weapon of the Sith is just a red lightsaber, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if he was a real Sith and he's actually looking for his apprentice, and it's like rule of two, we've only seen two of them, assuming Chimere is the guy. Like, I mean, that would be really cool. If he was one of the people that like picked up this legacy from his master that he killed, like that'd be cool too.
I think there's a rogue. You know what? Can I just change?
Yeah,
here? I think it's too easy that Chimere is the guy, and the big eerie violin twist is that it's not Chimere, essentially. Like, to me at this point, I'm just like, it's actually more interesting if he's there and the master's there. And she's like, I thought like it's almost like
it is what we see.
More freaky if it's like, whoa, like what? No way. Like
it is scarier. It is scary because it's like otherwise it would just be too like, all right, it's very Agatha Christie right now.
It's very like, Agatha. Yeah. Well, no, but I'm saying even then, I think there could be one more little subversion where it's one more kind of bizarre twist. Like my favorite detective books have like a kind of strange, bizarre twist or motivation that's kind of wrapped in everything. That's
I feel like Christie, like it's always one of the people you've met,
Yeah, and so that's why there's a classic side to Chimere being. It's very classic mystery.
But I'd love if it is what we see, and like Chimere's not the guy, and like it's someone else.
Scary. That's very scary. It's very
like, all right, who is this person? And technically we've met the master before, but as his own person. But I don't know. It's so funny. It's just like
they're never in the same place.
Yeah, one of the things we know from like prior research is that Leslie Headland is a big Rian Johnson fan, and I mean, this show feels a lot like Glass Onion to me.
No, that's so funny you say that, because I just feel like there's a lot of story beats in this show that just are like complete parallels to sort of things that happen in The Last Jedi that I could highlight over and over and over again. It's fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating.
That movie as well. There's definitely things. I mean, if it was the yin and yang symbol that we see in Act 2, like that's definitely that. There's a lot of little tiny beats that are very Last Jedi-esque. I mean, we practically see
even
the
soul
master
handing the
on Act
lightsaber off
2.
just felt like this. Look at this moment where the lightsaber is the Jedi is gonna do something, unexpected with the lightsaber. There's just lots of moments that I felt like were really interesting overlaps that were cool. Like I think it's a whole wonderful sort of like new take on Star Wars and by brilliant creators. I love all of that stuff. I guess I'm just interested in what subversions remain, and
I think there's going to be several.
Yeah,
it's there's so many, there's room for a ton. That's why I'm just on the edge of my seat watching this series.
It's fun for us. It's like, what's gonna happen next? It's really great. It really captures that serialized storytelling that George fell in love with in the first place. This sort of like these really fun cliffhangers, and you don't know who to trust. It's very fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. Wild, man. I'll be around for next week's episode, but I don't think I'll be around for the following week. I will be on Morlana.
Nice.
No, actually, not Morlana.
Yamos.
Well, I'll be Morlana first, and then I'm going to what's the other planet?
Yeah. You inevitably have to
the
go
beach planet
through Primor Morlana to get to Glian Salm or Yamos.
Niamos, thank you. I'm going to end up on Niamos next week. So, so I'll miss in 2 weeks. So episode 6 will be you and Adam. But wild.
We'll miss you, buddy.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait to talk about this episode with Adam, and then next episodes with Adam as well. Grant, this is something I'm trying to do every week. What did I forget? What didn't we talk about here?
Oh, we got through it all. I feel like
any more theories?
Everything was put on the table, and I feel like because
I'm gonna hit stop, and then you're gonna tell me 10 other things I'm gonna wish were on the pod, because that's what happens every week.
Yeah, I know we do that. The pod does end, and then we inevitably talk for another hour about all the things we didn't talk about that I feel like I wish we had got on the pod, but no, I think we did it. I think we guessed we went up every avenue. We tried to figure out.
We created some new avenues this week, I think.
Yeah.
Some new theories.
Some new hyperlanes. Yeah.
Yeah. Love this show, man. Love this show.
It's a great show. It's keeping me, it's new Star Wars, and it's keeping me guessing, and it's packed with lore. What more can you want from Star Wars in general?
Yeah. New creatures, new planets, new designs, but still very familiar. A
Jedi-centric story, it's very interesting to see the Jedi at their height. And this is taking place during a really pivotal, interesting time in the history, and sort of the Jedi thought process and the Jedi institution sort of shifting after this. I wonder. I do hope there's a bigger Sith element to the show, and that the Sith eventually come into play in a major way.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And like a big tectonic move on the chessboard is made with the Sith in this story.
Yeah,
that's my hope.
My guess last week was that first 4 episodes are light side, last 4 episodes are dark side. I think it's maybe we do get the sort of flipped POV of May during what happened on Bartok. Am I saying that right? Brendok. Thank you. I always call it Bartok. Brendok. What she saw. And I think if this flip from day to night would be right at the midway point. We're at the midway point of this series right now. That leads more to that theory to me, lends more to my theory. Then we switch to night, and we're fully sort of surrounded, focused on dark side characters for the next 4 episodes.
How would you feel if it was a May flashback episode up next, and then we get back to the jungle after that?
Oh, and then it's night, like the episode 6. I'd love that.
Okay.
I love that. Yeah. That would be in line, I think, with kind of what they've done. It was just like we think we know what's going to happen. It's going to be the Kelnaka episode. They set it up, and it's and it would make sense they'd make us wait another week to wait for the fallout of that.
No, I need it next week. I need it.
Yeah, I mean, they've teased us with it since we saw the first trailer. Like, are you really going to do that to us again?
Yeah, we already saw this guy in the trailer do all this
Yeah,
cool more stuff. Like, let's just get some answers. Yeah.
let's get some
I don't need
answers.
answers. I just need to I need to understand the motivations.
Catharsis. Yeah, like what happened? Did everyone
Why kill
die?
Tanaka? Why go after May? Like,
Yeah.
it's lots I need to know. Anyways, next week we're going to talk about it. Episode 5, Night. We're thinking it's called. We're excited.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening to us. We greatly appreciate it always. And yeah, thanks for settling up at the bar with us. We'll do it again next week on
Cantina Chronicles.
Peace, y'all.